Welcome to the Nutrition Collaborative podcast, where we cut through the noise, bust the myths, and bring you nothing but truth about health, fitness, and everything in between. I'm Alec Moore, dietitian, and each week we'll dive into what really works when it comes to achieving lasting health and fitness. No gimmicks, no BS, just real talk, real success stories, and a holistic approach to living your healthiest life. Whether you're here for practical tips, inspiration from real client journeys, or just to find out what's actually worth your time, this is the podcast for you. Let's break it down, get empowered, and focus on what truly matters for your health. One of the most difficult areas of health and fitness and nutrition, wellness, etc. is easily travel. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Travel strongly disrupt your routine, your workout schedule, the way you eat. Travel impacts everything in your life. And if you are a frequent traveler, you've probably found out, you've probably learned that it's very difficult to sustain a certain routine or plan, or simply just a healthy lifestyle on the go when it requires a lot of traveling, whether that be via car, driving, or lots of flights and airports. So today we're going to dive into how the heck can we make the most of these trips? How do we set ourselves up for success? How do we still hit our goals with nutrition, with activity, with workouts, etc.? That's what we're going to be talking about today. And I know many people, we're coming up on summer, so there's going to be a lot of vacations. I do also just work with a lot of people who travel very regularly, frequently for their work. It could be also for family, vacations. Really, we're talking anywhere from a couple hour trip to a week or two. Anywhere in between. This is any kind of travel, because we still have to eat. We still want to work out. We still want to take care of ourselves and prioritize our health, especially when traveling, because usually that's when our stress is up, quite elevated. Our digestive habits and regularity and routine is thrown out of a whack, and just when it's harder to get into a groove, because you're not living or staying in your own environment, your own bed, your own space. A lot of different things are thrown off with your biology, and you can really notice those things when you slack on your activity, your nutrition, your hydration, your habits, etc. So that's what we're going to dive into today. We're going to talk about planning, preparing, and how to go into a trip. We're going to obviously talk about the trip itself when it comes to workouts, when it comes to how to get those steps in, how to get cardio in, workouts in, nutrition, you name it. We're going to cover it. And habits to keep you grounded, of course, as well. So before the trip even begins, we need to be thinking about it. This needs to be planned out. Now, it depends on your goal, of course. If you have a very, very specific goal that you're religiously, you're grinding toward day in and day out, that might look different for you when it comes to your travel and your habits during the travel and throughout the travel. You might be taking a vacation, and you might just need to unplug from, daily tracking of macronutrient tracking, of worrying about your steps, of all of these different stressors that are adding up, and you just need to go get away, and then everything in between. So this is not a conversation that's like just specific to weight loss or specific to any real individual for that matter. This is anybody can take from this, learn from this, and benefit. And we all travel. Again, whether it's a shorter trip or a longer 2-week trip to Italy, we all travel at some point in our lives. And for some folks, it's 3, 4, 5 cities in a 5-day span with their business or their work. And I work with a lot of those types of people, and we plan for it every single week on how to approach it, how to go about it, and how to make the most of it without feeling like you're just losing your mind or working yourself into the ground by trying to get this completed on top of your business conferences and lunch meetings with customers, etc. So we always want to set the intention in that pre-travel planning. What is our overarching goal of this trip? Is it really to like maintain the habits and progress that we've achieved so far and that we're working on right now? Just maintain that and keep it going. Is it a strategic rest travel? Like, is it a vacation where you haven't had a vacation in 4 years, you really need this vacation, and you want to again take some time away from tracking and things like that? You have to look at what you need out of the trip before going about the trip. You can look at I think it's smart to look at your days on, okay, here's my travel days, or here are my travel days, and then here are my I'm at this place or that place days. So you can plan out your schedule that way. And for my travel days, and for my clients and everybody, I always recommend those travel days to be the days where our activity is higher, of course, because you're going to be walking around airports. You're going to be more on the go on those days. And so we know we can have good access to food when we're on the go. We're not held to, okay, I have no car. I'm limited by car and limited by food availability. So when you're traveling, it's so much easier to plan, which sounds like I'm not telling the truth with that, but it's so much easier because you have so much more access to food. So food everywhere when you're traveling. So you want to schedule out the days that you're going to be traveling and understand 2 in my fro. And then here are my 5 or 6 days that I'm at this place. And with that, you can schedule in like, okay, if I'm traveling Thursday and the next Wednesday, I know for a fact I'm not going to be weight training or doing cardio on those days. My steps are probably going to be elevated from these airports and such. And we'll dive into a little bit more about that here in a minute. But my non-exercise activity thermogenesis is likely going to be slightly elevated from your travel days if you go about it the right way. And nervous system is probably a little bit taxed with the travel, circadian rhythms thrown off, digestion's thrown off. So those probably aren't the days to work out. So if you are one of those who has to get a workout in at 4 a.m. before a 8 a.m. flight, it might not be the best. I mean, I'm going to support it because I've done that too. And some people love to go about that as long as it doesn't just fry your nervous system and leave you feeling super fatigued the rest of the trip. But I recommend those travel days to be just your hydration focus, nutrition focus, and steps and movement focus. Just get where you need to be safely. That's the main priority. Then you can schedule in your workouts and cardio sessions if you have them into those days that you're actually there. And maybe it's, in a 5-day span, maybe it's 2 to 3 workouts instead of training every day like you do at home. And it's just to quote unquote maintain. That was your intention of the trip, is just to maintain. Maybe you are looking to lose weight and you really need to prioritize the cardio aspect. So you schedule in for yourself. Thursday was my travel day, and then Wednesday. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I'm going to do my cardio at this time or that time. You can break it down in like a calendar view. That's the best way to do it with your schedule. That's where you want to start. Then obviously see where you're going to be on those certain days. Where are you going to be when you arrive Friday? Where are you going to be Saturday? Are you going to the conference? Are you going to be at the hotel? What does it look like in your environment and where you're staying? If there is some like mini travel within your own travel that you're traveling around, and what foods you need to have on hand and pack ahead of time before you're able to maybe reach like a grocery store, or like a marketplace or somewhere where you can grab a couple items to keep in your hotel for a couple of days. So what do you need to plan for ahead of time and pack? Okay, so the first thing is the pre-travel planning and the scheduling and seeing where you're located, when you're located at these certain places, etc. Try to pack everything you can in your bags, in your carry-on, not your check bag. Try to pack everything with you as best you can. Obviously, you're limited in that, and I do have a nutrition travel guide that you can download. Reach out to me, I can send it to you. But pack with purpose. So pack, say you get on a plane at Thursday at 8 a.m., but you're not going to be able to get dinner until 7 p.m. and you don't land till noon. Okay, that you're going to be pretty hungry between 8 a.m. and noon. Okay, so you pack something that doesn't need refrigerated, that stores well, and that leaves you feeling, obviously satiated, full, etc., energetic, nourished, you name it. You're going to want to pack that with you. That gets you from A to B. Then you can worry about either getting a lunch or have another snack on you, basically backtracking from that first meal that you're going to be able to get, and have enough fuel on hand, enough water on hand as well. So you just always a note there. It's not even about the scheduling when it comes to that aspect of things. It's more so just having food available to you, so you don't have to let yourself get super hungry and decision fatigued by the end of the day. You're underfueled, and then you just say, "Oh, screw it! I'm gonna order room service, and I'm gonna get this, and then you end up overdoing it because you haven't had anything to eat all day, and then you might just be miserable. And maybe you had a very important meeting that didn't go well because you were so miserable, because you were so hungry, dehydrated, unprepared, and you just had to travel, run out the door, get on a plane, and you forgot to plan, schedule things out, and prepare. You want to be on top of things when it comes to your travel. You don't want to be that person getting on a flight with nothing in their bag, no water on them, and not having a plan of when is my next meal? Like, what does this look like? Obviously, I don't want you to be obsessed with, when's my next meal? When's my next meal? When's my next meal? But you have to plan forward when it comes to travel for the most success. Definitely want to, bring a reusable water bottle. Of course, obviously, if you're flying, you can't bring it through TSA. You can bring an empty one though. You can bring it empty. And so usually when I'm on the way to the airport, I'll have just enough to get me by, like a quarter of a bottle or something, sip the rest of it right before I get into TSA. I go through TSA, I fill it up immediately, I'm good. I've got snacks, I've got water. It's the best. I don't have to go spend $13 on a tiny little item from an airport market because they're overly, they're overpriced, and you can bring stuff with you and save money that way. You can also obviously, pack supplements and things like that. I'm I guess a supporter of I'm kind of 50-50 with that. Like if it's a 4-day trip, you probably don't need to bring your fish oil soft gels. You can, you know what I mean? Like you can bring maybe some creatine, so you can stay, your creatine levels can stay saturated on the trip, and you can like scoop out a couple scoops, label it, so TSA knows what that white powder is in your bag. Some creatine, and maybe not worry about all the other ones and having a big ordeal. Now, if it's a 2-week trip and you're very serious about your goals and you need them to stay on your routine digestively and with your performance, etc., then sure, absolutely, please bring those and portion them out, label them, etc. But planning. So first we have scheduling, planning, preparing, packing with the best intentions. Now let's talk about nutrition while traveling on a little bit more specific level. I think for like eating out in restaurants and these dinners with maybe customers or coworkers, even things like that, I think it's really helpful to have a plan ahead of time. Oh, imagine that, right? Looking at the menus ahead of time. Again, not letting this be super obsessive or become super obsessive, but having a plan so that you don't show up to a spot having to just order something on the fly without actually coming prepared. And then maybe maybe one meal like that is not a big deal, right? But chronically over and over and over again, you're going to notice differences in your digestion. You're going to notice differences in how you feel in the meetings that you're going to, these conferences that you're going to, and from a mental standpoint too, a psychological, cognitive standpoint. You want to know where, I know Friday when I land, we're going actually straight to lunch, and I already know what that lunch is. I'm going to take a look and see, if I'm only going to have a low calorie bar on the plane, and I'm going to be very limited in time for the rest of the day after I get this lunch with the crew, I know I'm going to have to get sufficient calories. That way I don't eat 200 calorie bar, 400 calorie lunch meal, and now I've had 600 calories, and I was traveling all day. It's 8 p.m. and I haven't had anything. That's also what we want to avoid. So it's not always about like, accidentally overeating or just gaining weight on the trip. It's a lot of times with travel, you can be extremely distracted, very busy, and next thing you know, you blink and you don't even haven't had any food. That's also why you want to pack with intention. Now let's actually talk about restaurant meals. It's really important to talk about like maybe I like to use like I don't want to say a rule. Let's not call it a rule, but the 1 of 3 idea, meaning treats, alcohol, and appetizers, right? So it's probably not the best if you're trying to lose weight to have an appetizer and then your high calorie entree and then a dessert and then alcohol. So in addition to your entree, it can be helpful to say, I'm going to pick 1 of 3. Do I want a drink with this dinner? Or do I want a drink with this entree? Or do I want chips and dip with this entree? Or do I want a slice of lava cake with this entree? It's usually not best if you're trying to lose weight and you eat a 1,000 calorie appetizer, a 2,000 calorie entree, 1,000 calorie dessert, and then you have 600 calories worth of drinks. I mean, that's some people's caloric requirement for a week, in one stinking meal. So 1 of 3. Do you want the appetizer plus entree, the dessert plus entree, or drinks plus entree, or 0 of 3? I mean, you don't have to pick one. You could also say, you know what, I'm going to stay away from those. Or maybe you have a marathon in a couple of weeks and you are running 40 miles a week and your caloric expenditure is very, very, very high. Then maybe someone like you needs to say, you know what, I do need that appetizer. I need that extra 1,000 calories. Okay. So again, I'm not trying to just preach to those who are losing weight. This is educational, valuable to all, really, is the goal here. Another really, 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 really big topic. Yes. The skipping meals because you're going to eat out at a restaurant later during travel. And a lot of people also just skip meals because they're traveling, but then they are starving by the end of the night, or they are in a terrible, irritable mood and they fight with their boss or their relationship, or their partner. It can all be prevented from improved blood sugar levels, not, preparing and planning and not just going by the flying by the seat of your pants with your intake, just kind of eating on the fly. It has to be something you think about consistently and again ahead of time, so that you don't turn into that person. We're trying to maximize travel here, no matter the goal, really, 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 really. And so do not skip meals. Just because you know that you're going to be eating out at a restaurant later tonight, it doesn't mean that you need to skip meals all day just to have a crazy high splurge in calories at night. What if it was more balanced? What if you just had a more moderate calorie breakfast, moderate calorie lunch, moderate calorie dinner? You might feel a lot better physically, mentally, emotionally, digestively, you name it. Probably going to be feeling a lot better. So that's eating out during travel, eating on the go. If you don't have snacks packed, it's going to be difficult and you're going to feel like you missed the mark. So having things packed and then knowing what to get at certain gas stations or airport, like little shops, or at restaurants. Maybe you just need like a side item real quick, or maybe it's a coffee shop and you just want to hop in and get something rich in protein and some coffee and then hop out. Knowing what to get is huge. So learning menus, how to navigate a menu, learning how to navigate an airport, learning how to simply navigate your own nutrition in general. Knowledge, we talked about a couple weeks ago in the podcast, relationship with food and how knowledge increases in knowledge, or a high level of nutritional knowledge is going to lead to improvements in relationship with food. It's the same thing here. So the more you know and the more you learn, the more you're going to be well versed and more you're going to be able to tackle these challenges and obstacles of travel and managing your health, fitness, nutrition, etc. on the go, and with either limited options around you or a mess of a schedule and trying to navigate and eat the proper amount of food throughout that crazy schedule. Now, we've been talking a lot about, habits and preparing, packing, scheduling, and eating out, etc. But I do want to talk about workouts. I think you should be okay with working out less while traveling. Again, nervous system is super taxed, circadian rhythm. You might be traveling between time zones. You might be just poor sleep from traveling all day, high fatigue, etc. So training frequency might have to go down. Maybe you just get one upper, one lower end while you're gone, depending on how long you're gone, of course. and that can suffice. Just go really hard in each session and make them quality, because you know you're not going to get a lot of gym time outside of that. Or you might have limited equipment, so you might only be able to do either a really like lighter weight dumbbell workout or a body weight session of some sort, or like a YouTube video workout of some sort. So you might need to be a little bit more flexible with your workouts due to a lack of equipment, and then learn how to utilize a lack of equipment, or how to get through a workout with a lack of equipment. And instead of just saying, oh, I'll just work out when I get back. Well, your body would love for you to work out at least a little bit during your travel. Again, we don't have to be obsessive with it. We don't have to have a frequency of every single day while on the travel to have success. You don't have to go that extreme. You can look ahead at the gym. If you have a say in picking your hotel, depending on the type of travel, if it's for work or for personal, I would check the gym hours, check the gym equipment, and base your hotel choice on that if you can. If you are able to do that, see what they have available, the hours for the gym, and if there's any walkable or nearby gyms if they don't have a gym sufficient in proper equipment. Here's something: walking is extremely underrated when it comes to travel, health, fitness, etc. during travel. Airports are huge. You walk into an airport, oh my goodness. Why is everyone sitting, waiting for their flight for 2 to 3 hours? Some people obviously even longer for like layovers and such, sitting, doing nothing, eating high sodium foods, high fat foods, sitting for hours, and then getting on a plane ride that lasts hours. It just does not make any sense for your health, your heart health, your blood pressure, your literally anything. It does not make sense. So here's a huge pro tip for you. Walk the airport. Loop after loop after loop. Rack up those steps throughout the airports while you're waiting on either your bags or while you're waiting on your flight to actually board and take off. Those steps can add up. And so that's why I think it's really helpful to just like plan for steps, like hydration and nutrition focuses on those travel specific days. It's truly a game changer. But again, going back to the actual workouts themselves, be okay with getting a little bit less. And just like we did with the food and the snacks that we packed and planned with the schedule, do the same thing for your workouts. Search ahead, plan ahead. You don't want to be that person pulling into the hotel, not knowing a single thing about that hotel. You pulled up and they didn't even have a gym. You pulled up and they didn't have a microwave in the room or a mini fridge, and you brought all this yogurt. Look at these things ahead of time. When it should be just as important as booking the flight itself. Researching the gym or gyms nearby, researching nutrition or access to good food and nutrition nearby. Those pieces are just as important as booking the flight itself. So, some daily habits that can anchor you. I think during travel specifically, of course, I think trying to still have some sort of sleep wake routine, like morning and evening routine, to mimic being at home, because it can be very difficult to sleep in a completely different bed, completely different environment, elevated stressors, room temperature always seems to be out of whack. All those little things and intricate details are impacting or affecting you, your performance, your digestion, how you feel, you name it. And so I think it's really important to set those even when traveling. It could be it could be very difficult, but very worth it when traveling. I think morning protein and morning movement during travel is also very, very helpful, especially if you are someone who is in conferences and just sitting all day long. I think implementing and just enforcing it, telling yourself you're going to get up a little bit early to go get some steps in, because you know you're not going to sit, you're not going to stand or walk all day long. After all day travel yesterday, sitting in the airport all day, in between, layovers all day, on the planes all day, and then you're going to go sit in a conference room for 8 to 10 hours for 5 days straight. You got to work those steps in, either before the day starts or after the day ends, and in between. You can take a longer walk to the restroom. You can take during the lunch split, you can take a walk while everybody just sits and talks and eats chips. Being proactive for your travel is how you're going to get through travel in the best way possible. When you travel, here's another note. Your stressors, and I've talked about it a little bit, but your stressors are going to be elevated. Sleep might be a little bit more poor, and you might be eating at different times. You might be eating different food sources or like different types of foods than you normally eat, and your digestion is used to consuming and breaking down. Your sleep, again, you might be off with your environment and sleep, just sleep quality and quantity at the end of the day. So stress up, sleep off or down, and meal times skewed, eating different foods that you're not used to, being in different environments in a whole different time zone. All of those things are going to greatly impact your digestion. So first off, ignore the scale when you travel. That's very important. Just ignore that stinking number. You are going to fluctuate a ton. You're going to hold water on the plane. You're going to hold water from higher sodium foods, more convenient foods that you're relying on, more processed foods from eating out. Again, like I said, from your digestive system, your bowel habits and bowel schedule is going to be completely thrown out of whack, and so you may notice you start to either swell in your joints and your fingers and your cheeks and things like that, and your ankles on a bunch of plane rides and high sodium foods. You need to, one, hydrate better, move better, and choose lower sodium options, just as a little piece of advice there. But if you plan ahead and you packed lower sodium snacks, you got your steps throughout the travel, you were smart about your choices on the menu selections when you ate out at restaurants, you stayed very hydrated, you got your workout in when you could, all of those things are going to add in, make you feel so much better throughout the trip. And it's also going to regulate your body weight a little bit more. So you have less swings and fluctuations. And then you have less frustration throughout the trip, less frustration, less eagerness to just like get back home because your stomach hurts so bad. Those are wins. They're just getting through the trip with no digestive discomfort, with no, crazy bloat, with no fluid retention, up several pounds, constipated as can be. All of that stuff can be prevented. And I know all of you listening, like this, during travel, you dread it. You dread traveling. I know you're probably like, how does he know exactly what I'm thinking right now? Because I've worked with people like you. I could guarantee you that you don't care about what you're taking in your snacks, what you're bringing water at all. Like, oh, I can't take it through TSA, so I just won't bring any water at all. No, bring the empty bottle. Refillable. Get your steps in, schedule things out, plan ahead. It sounds very basic, and it truly is. It's just about caring and planning ahead. Here's where a lot of people go wrong when it comes to travel. It's as soon as they get back, well, they're either still in vacation mode, so they don't go to the grocery store for 4 days, and they just rely on more meals out, more junk food, more highly processed, highly convenient foods because they're in that mode of vacation. They haven't snapped out of it and gotten back, quote unquote, on track. So there's that. When you get back, that can be an issue. There's also the other side where I come back and I'm extremely bloated, swollen, fluid retention out the wazoo, got pounds of fluid on me. Can't go to the bathroom. I'm super constipated, super fatigued because I just ate 300 calories total on Monday, 4,000 calories on Tuesday, 1,700 on Wednesday, 942 calories on Thursday. You had a very inconsistent calorie intake. You had to go through a lot of stress because your sleep was off, your digestion was off the whole trip, your hydration, you were dehydrated. Think of all the negative things, right? If you would have just planned from the get-go ahead of time, you wouldn't have had to deal with all of those things. So you don't have to panic cardio and panic that the scale's up and go do cardio because of it. That's just, we don't want to create that behavior in the first place. We don't have to, I guess we could call it like punish ourselves or correct or overcorrect. And, oh, now we're going to hit the gym 7 days in a row because we traveled and we feel like crap and we're bloated and we have way too much water on us and the scale went up. So we're going to go do 15,000 steps a day for 7 days. We're going to go train every day for 7 days. We're going to go do an hour of cardio for 7 days. Don't do any of those things. First off, obviously, if you backtrack to the very beginning and you do all the right things from the very beginning, you probably wouldn't have to end up in that spot in the first place. But sometimes that happens even to those who follow a close plan. Your digestion still might get thrown off because it's just the reality of travel and stress and time zones, circadian rhythm, and again, eating different foods at different times, you name it. But try not to make all these extravagant changes when trying to go back to quote unquote normal. Just simply go back to normal. Everything will work itself out. You get back, regularly hydrated. You get your metabolism re-regulated. You're starting to eat the same amount of calories every day again. You're back on track with your normal training days, cardio days, and rest days, and you're not doing a gazillion steps just to burn everything off, right? I think it's really important to strongly emphasize hydration and sleep upon returning, just to let your body get back to a normal rhythm internally, because then you're going to be able to perform better, obviously, digest foods better in those subsequent few days of returning home. And then, like I said, with the grocery store, do it ASAP. Do it immediately. If it's midnight when you land, okay, first thing tomorrow morning, I'm either going to have my groceries already delivered or I'm going to go get them. Game changer. Don't let yourself get home from a trip and waste 4 or 5 days before you get to the grocery store, surviving or living off of leftover chips that were in your pantry or leftover super convenient, highly processed, low protein food. Get to the store, no buffer time, get there, load up for the week, get yourself right back on track, and basically create minimal damage, or as minimal damage as possible. This one's been a longer one. It has. There's a lot to talk about with travel. I tried to touch on nutrition. I tried to touch on workouts, cardio, supplements even, hydration, movement, and habits, planning, preparing, scheduling. But I want to talk about the fact that I hope one trip is not going to make or break your progress, because consistency over time is what matters the most. And let me tell you this, success during travel is doing something, not everything. Success during travel is doing something, not everything. You do not have to go do an hour workout, hour cardio, 15,000 steps, 8 hours of a conference, perfect with macros, perfect with this, perfect with that. You don't have to do all of those things. However, on the flip side, it's better to do something than nothing. And so you shouldn't say, well, I've been great for 4 weeks. So for this week on my work trip, I'm just going to say, screw it. I'm not going to care about any of my protein, any of my water, any of my movement. I'm going to go back to my old habits. Well, guess what? In 7 days, you just undid, quote unquote, right? For example here, you just undid those first 4 weeks, all that hard work you did for 4 weeks, just to not care during the travel for 7 days. And now you feel like crap. You gained more weight back than you even started with 4 or 5 weeks ago. So you don't have to do everything. It's better to do at least something than nothing. Somewhere in the middle for travel, and we got to be okay with that. I think it could be important to maybe pick 2 to 3 like non-negotiables that you follow or have or that apply to you for your travel days. So for this travel, I'm gonna have my 3 non-negotiables of X, Y, and Z. And no matter what gets in the way of, the travel, the layovers, the flight delays, the schedule changes, the hotel staying, lack of access to food, lack of gym, I'm going to get these 3 things done no matter what on this trip, and make it individual to you, obviously, because some people might be wanting to lose weight. Some people might be wanting to improve their performance. Some people might be running a marathon in 2-3 weeks. Some people might be trying to improve their gut health. Make those 3 non-negotiables very specific to you. So to close this thing out, let me know if you've ever traveled and felt bloated upon returning home, worried why the scale is up, constipated even when you get back home, feeling like you had no control over the trip, feeling like you couldn't get a workout and you couldn't fit time for a workout. Your steps were below 5,000 a day every day. If you're listening, I can guarantee this has happened to you at least once. And then you came back from your trip and you either tried to work it off or, I'm going to fast for a day or 2 and then I'll start eating. Or I'll do this to counteract that from the trip. Don't do that. Prepare, succeed. Travel does not have to be the end of your progress. Travel does not have to prevent you from getting to where you want to be. Travel is certainly a little bit of a challenge and an obstacle to overcome. And sure, you may train less, you may do less, you may be more flexible with your intake and your habits and such. It does not have to go terribly every single time you take a trip. So I hoped it helped today to talk and walk through some key items and components for success during travel, because I want you to conquer your travel every single time you do it, to almost to a point where nothing changes internally, that I've talked about throughout this episode, where nothing changes and you just feel normal. You just so happen to be in a completely different city traveling. Ultimately, I think that's the best travel goal, or that's the number one goal to strive for, is having the knowledge, tools, and understanding to get your habits and nutritional intake, etc., to a point where even during travel, you feel like you're at home. with your digestion, your performance, your cognition, your sleep habits, your hydration habits. If you are that knowledgeable enough to do so, you're going to feel great every time you travel, and you won't dread traveling, and you won't feel like crap for a week after traveling every single time and have to work back to get where you were before the travel. It doesn't have to be a hindrance. It doesn't have to be a roadblock, and it does not, like, travel does not have to be the thing that prevents you from where you want to be. I work with a ton of people all the time who travel for work daily, weekly, you name it, and they succeed because they care, they plan ahead, and they do all of those key components that I just described in this podcast episode. So if you want my travel guide, it's completely free. I'm just going to give it to you because I want you to be empowered. I want you to know these things at a deeper level. Let me know. Reach out to me or comment on this, and we'll get you that free travel guide. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time.